What up, racer? ItsJerone here, and welcome back to, I'm pretty sure this is the 5th round of the AOR season, and we're racing around France, around Paul Ricard, and controversially, I really like this track. Yes, I actually do really like this track. Well, I don't really like the history and how it looks graphically, but in terms of driving and the pure racing, I think it really is a good track. Anyways, we're looking at the standings. I obviously missed Monaco, and if you did not check out the previous video, then oh well, you're a bit too late now, because in the end I finished second place around Baku. Zach managed to get his penalty removed, and that was also expected really. Anyways, for this race I did quite a bit of practice actually, so I sort of knew how long the tires would go, what I could do in qualifying, and as you can see at the timer at the top right, I crossed the line with only 1 second to go in qualifying after I put it on P4 on my banker lap. Going through turns 1 and 2, it's sort of okay, but it's a bit hesitant really, and I think you will see that throughout most of the lap. It's not extremely committed, and I think I could go a lot faster. Well, I'm pretty sure, I'm actually confident I can go a lot faster than this, but so far, Sector 1, no real major mistakes, but as I said, wasn't extremely committed. I think my straight line speed around this track is quite okay, so I should be good for the race when it comes to overtaking. The chicane in the middle of the back straight, I think took that pretty nicely. You want to hit the inside curve for the right-hander to get some extra rotation. Then this right-hander is of course easy flat, and then one of my favorite corners around this track, absolutely sending it and trying to get on the power as early as possible to try and take as much speed as possible. Then for this left-hander I should have opened up the line a bit more, because that will give you extra exit speed. Stay on this curb for the right-hand side in order to minimize the track distance. Down to 4th gear for the left-hander, and down to 2nd gear for the right-hander. Got a bit of wheel spin on the exit, which hurt my exit speed a little bit, and in the end I will improve by 2.5 tenths, and it's a 1 minute 27.8, and I wasn't even particularly happy with this lap, because the day before I was doing 27.4s, 27.5s quite consistently, and I think it might be due to the fact that I didn't really do a lot of time trial before the event, as in the last 15 minutes or half an hour, and I think if I would have done that, then I would have been a bit faster in qualifying, but it doesn't matter because I have pole position with Gabs in 2nd place. Anyways, if you look at the weather forecast at the top, there is a little bit of rain expected halfway through this race, so it will really be interesting to see what happens, but let's first listen to a radio message.
5 minutes until rainfall expected. 5 minutes until rain dries. Seem like the best tyre for now.
5 minutes until rain expected, so the strategy will be made up on the fly as we have 5 red lights, trying to get a good launch, and it's a little bit of wheel spin in 1st gear, but besides that we get very good traction in 2nd to 5th gear, and we are clear heading into turn 1, and immediately there's an incident behind, and that means I'm already more than a second clear of the whole pack. So now Tasha's moved up to 2nd place with Benkai in 3rd and my teammate in 4th. In the end it turned out that Gabs braked a bit too late and hit Rally Monster, hence he spun. But this is of course the dream scenario when you start from pole position and you're already a second and a half clear down the back straight here in France. Anyways, this is from Gab's point of view in the Alfa Romeo. Got quite a poor start and was about to be jumped by even more cars as they nearly went 3 wide, and in the end he tagged the Red Bull driver and he was round. So unfortunate for Rally Monster, but of course he has to continue and carry on with the race, because I can confirm it will be quite a hectic one actually. Anyways, regularly I was planning on doing one stop, going from soft to mediums, pitting for ideally lap 10, or if I would have to make an undercut, I would have pit on lap 9. But as you can see, lap 6, first raindrops are falling already, which was not really what I was expecting due to the weather forecast that was given at the start of the race. In the meanwhile, my teammate overtook 2 other drivers in front of her, and yeah, to be fair to her, to my teammate, she had really good pace on the opening laps, and she sort of dragged all the other drivers along with her. So my advantage at the start was a bit dissipated in the latter stages of the first stint. Anyways, weather is picking up significantly. As you can see, we are of course doing red sectors now, and ideally one of us should have pitted here, as you will see in a few moments time. Anyway, someone who does pit is Bankai, and the question now is, do you go to a set of slicks or a set of intermediate tires? As we're now coming to the end of lap 9, as you can see, front left's already 72%, and I think my teammate's tire wear was even 1 or 2 percentages worse, so mutually we agreed that she would take the priority in the pit lane at the moment, and both me and my teammate will go to slick tires. As you can see on the top right, there was 6.5 seconds we were slower this lap than to my previous best time. So the weather was definitely significant, but I personally didn't feel like the track was quite ready for intermediate tires yet, and I sort of had a scenario in mind where we would maybe not have to switch from slick compounds to the intermediates. And to be fair, that was mainly due to what the forecast was saying at the start of the race. Anyways, we're staying on board for the next 2 laps because some things will happen. And as you can see, 75% tire wear down the back straight. And in my practice runs, I could get to the pit lane with 74% with an extra lap in qualifying, and it would be fine. So I was quite surprised that the tire wear was this high, but it's probably due to the fact that it was raining and you would have to turn your car more, as we now have a puncture and round we go. And this is of course the horror scenario, which you do not want to happen anywhere from 75% onwards. This game is a bit RNG when it comes to giving you a puncture. Sometimes it can happen right at 75%, sometimes you can go to 99% and not get a puncture. As we get hit by Pasty, I'm not really sure what he was doing, and well, I probably wanted to pit, but probably didn't realize I had a puncture. For this race we should stay within the white lines when entering the pit lane, but I think it was clear I didn't do that, but I definitely didn't gain any time by cutting the white lines at the pit entry, because it was also a bit impossible to control. Anyways, if you have a puncture you can also not do the 60 kph speed limit in the pit lane, so that was a little bit annoying as well. But I was just taking the gamble here to switch to another compound of slicks, and let's see whether this is the right call. It doesn't look like the track is quite there yet, but ultimately the tire temperatures will tell us whether this was the right decision or not. So let's stay on board for this first sector. As you can see, Pasty at pit, and Tigerism came out on track on a set of intermediate tires already. So let's see whether this is the right decision. Going through first sector, and we're making up a lot of time on Pasty and Tigerism. But also watch the temperatures on my dashboard. Will they reach 85 to 90 degrees? And unfortunately the answer will be no, not really. Because on the later stages of Sector 1 you could already see that Pasty and Tigerism were pulling away, as they're now also fighting into the chicane here in the back straight. And I think on the traction here you can just see the delta is going up, and DRS is also disabled by now. So this probably is the wrong call, as we're also sliding through this very fast right-hander, which is of course not very optimal. Sun is still shining, and it doesn't really look like it's pouring down yet, but unfortunately this probably is the wrong call. And you will see in a few moments that I was hoping to be able to drive through this rain, but I also asked Jeff multiple times, and he was saying whether our rain would still continue for 10 more minutes, and even when we were 10 minutes later, Jeff would still say it would rain for 10 minutes. So in the end, I still decided to continue with my gamble, but it of course doesn't really work. As you can now see, Solid Ninja all over the back of me. It's a lot more grip. We've dropped a 5-second gap to Pasty in about 1 lap. So this is not the tire to be on, and giving Solid Ninja the racing line here to continue on with this race, as we also have gaps behind 3 seconds, then Pyro 13, and you will just see later on in this lap, here comes Gabs as we try to get the power down, and it was just very, very tough, as I also get a moment of oversteer and even get a little tap by Gabs, which was a bit unnecessary in my opinion, but yeah, this was just not the right call. And at this time, both me and my teammate decided that this was not the way to go, as in the meanwhile we have the Mercedes of Pyro passing me, and of course Marcus in the Haas as well, easily going around my outside, as they just have so much more grip. So I wanted to box this lap, checking the weather report one more time, and in the meanwhile, while Jeff was talking to me, I lost it on the traction, and that's another 10 seconds or so down the drain, as I also cut the pit entry once again, but once again, I'm pretty sure I didn't gain any time with cutting the pit entry there. And nobody also reported me for doing it, so I'm pretty sure I won't get a penalty for it anyways. But what I will get a penalty for is, of course, when you regularly cut corners. And these intermediate tires had a lot more grip than the medium tires, as I once again got the right-hander in sector 1. So I have a 3-second time penalty now, and fortunately many others had already. And you can imagine by this point I was quite frustrated and not particularly happy with how the race was going, leading the whole first stint and then making a wrong strategy call. Hence we're now in 10th place in the race, as in the meanwhile Switchback was having a bit of a horrid time, and he caused a VSC. He managed to get going again, which is good for him. And yeah, at this point the situation was looking pretty dire, not gonna lie. I mean, I'm still running in the points, so obviously I won't give up, but still, the only thing I could pray for was a safety car, and I'm not sure what this AlphaTauri was doing, what even happened, because there wasn't even a wall there, and a safety car has been called out. So both me and my teammate are saved, as Jeff tells us that I should shut up. So thanks for the very useful intel, Jeff. It is much appreciated. In meanwhile, Rally Monster picked up a drive-through penalty, as we see some people diving into the pit lane for a fresh set of intermediate tires under the virtual or the full core safety car. And as you could see by the forecast at the start of the race, it was also predicted that it would dry up again. And the question is whether that will also happen, as Marcus had actually decided to pit for mediums on the previous lap, and clearly it wasn't the way to go, because he's coming in once again now for, I'm pretty sure, a soft compound, a set of, Jesus, can I talk? A set of soft compounds, and we will see whether that is the right strategy call, as I sort of overtook Rally Monster on this straight, because I wasn't really sure what he was doing. He was going really, really slow, and of course it's not allowed to overtake under a safety car, so immediately I let him go again. So if we look at it, Marcus actually went back to Inters, and there are some other drivers who were gambling on slick compounds, and that's also what I'm gonna do, because Jeff told me at this point there was a clear patch and no more rain was expected. So we're coming in for a set of soft compounds, and in front of me Pedro had done the same thing, and as well as Marcus and my teammate Ralph. And safety car restart, you can see 2 more people are coming in for intermediate or for slick tires, as the lead cars are, well, not all, but definitely a group of them is risking it and staying out on intermediate tires. So let's see which is the right call, as we're now following Pedro in the Aston Martin, as in the meanwhile Tigerism gets disqualified for, I have no idea. He might have cut a lot of corners. I'm not entirely sure why he got disqualified there, but that's the only thing I could think of, really. And you can just see the Aston Martin cars are swapping positions, and clearly the grip on the slicks is better again than on the intermediate tires, as we're now trying to get past solid, as Marcus is making 2 moves, but the slipstream was just stronger, so we can essentially form a roadblock with solid into the chicane. And unfortunately I sort of tried to do a switchback move on solid, but that also invited Marcus to go down the inside, so now we can make it 3 wide into this fast right-hander, but that's not gonna work, as conditions are still a bit treacherous on the slick tires through this fast right-hander. And here you can just tell we have so much more grip than the intermediate runners. So we get the undercut on Solid Ninja there, and my teammate follows me through, but in the meanwhile I had to let Marcus go, because I sort of made the wrong decision here. I should have covered the inside for that right-hander in the chicane, rather than trying to set up a switchback move on Solid Ninja. Here you can see it from the replay cameras, quite a nice shot I think, which clearly shows the discrepancy in tire grip at this moment. And it also shows that we're on the right call. So whereas the situation was looking pretty dire a couple of laps ago, it has turned completely on its head, as we now have the final intermediate runner also coming into the pit lane, because the track is drying up. And as you can see in front of me, Pedro is on a 6-second time penalty, Marcus is on also 6 seconds, and I'm still on 3 seconds, but in the meanwhile I acquired 2 more warnings. So we'll just see here me turning out of the corners, because I was quite struggling again with getting acquainted to the conditions, and especially turn 1 was the corner where I struggled the most, where my braking point was still a bit too early. So it was key for me to turn out of the corners multiple times. Ideally I would have wanted to stay within 3 seconds of Pedro, but his pace was just lights out after the switch to dry compounds again. And under normal racing conditions I'm pretty sure I would have been able to stay closer to Marcus, but I just didn't want to get a penalty. And if we can keep it clean through this final sector of the race, I will be able to get 2nd place in this race after being down in P10 on the wrong compound of tire. And I think this can be considered a very successful comeback drive. What a weird race this was. Some people had done 6 stops I think and still finished on the podium, i.e. that was Marcus. And also very good job by Pedro. He made the right call, and I think making the right call was a lot more difficult for the cars in front, because you don't want to get the wrong end and lose track position. Whereas for us coming back from the back of the field, it was a lot easier to make the decision to risk it again and go to slicks. So congrats to Pedro for winning this race, and Marcus on his first podium in this league. For us Alpine cars, I think a 2-4 in this race was actually, well, not the best we could have got, because by the end of the first stint we were leading 1-2, but still, to come back from both being on the edge of the points to a 2-4 finish, I think is a good result. So yeah, what a crazy race this was. It literally went from up to down to even more down. Then when the safety cars came, to up, and even more up when I finished on the podium. So I'm very happy. I also gained points on basically all of my rivals in this league. And yeah, I really enjoyed this race in the end. I'm not sure what I would have said if I'd finished somewhere on the edge of the points. But overall, I'm quite happy with this. Anyways, if you fancy it, you can subscribe to the channel, like this video, and you will be able to see a lot more league racing content in the future. Anyways though, I'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.